Hey guys, welcome to the Titanium Vault. I'm your host, RJ Bates III, and today I'm here with the Novation King, Mr. Rich Wonders. What's up, bro?
Yo, what up, bro? Thanks for having me on, man. Excited to be
Yeah.
here.
Well, thanks for hopping on here. I got to witness your craft, the strength of your closing abilities the other day. I got to judge you in the sixth round of the Closers Olympics qualifiers, and man, I have to tell you, I was blown away by your abilities, and in reality, I think part of the reason why I was so blown away is the similarities we have with closing. So I want to talk about that today, but for the people that don't know who you are or haven't heard of you, tell them what it is that you do in real estate and how long you've been doing it.
Yeah, I'm a nationwide wholesaler. I specialize in novations. This is where we lock up contracts direct to seller. We typically do little to no work on the property, and then we sell it to a third party using realtors on the MLS, and we
Yep.
can sell to people with loans. So I do that actively in my business. I teach people how to do that in my private community, my course, and I just have a passion for sales. I've been in sales for a very long time. I love the challenge of it. I love helping people get better at communicating and better their lives. And yeah, I mean, real estate's cool and everything, but honestly, for me, it's just a vehicle to deploy the sales and communication and make money, basically.
Love it, man. So, where are you based out of?
I'm in downtown Phoenix.
Okay, cool. So, I was curious for whatever reason, man. When you had the hookah going on during the Closers Olympics, I was feeling a SoCal vibe there a little bit. So, Phoenix is cool. It's one of my favorite markets in the United States. So, you say you're a nationwide wholesaler, but you also do novation. So, are you constantly blending those two, or are you ever just straight wholesaling without the novation factor?
So almost every contract I will lock up with the expectation that we're selling to a third party and we have the option of using the MLS.
Gotcha.
Now, a few out of, I would say maybe 10 to 20, maybe 30% of those, we will sell off market if we get the opportunity and it makes sense, right? Because quick and easy, there's a value to that, right? But I lock them all up the same and I use the same paperwork, and that's nationwide. And actually, all my deals are sent to me on my Instagram. So I do all JV deals. I do zero of my own marketing right now. So it's an interesting
now,
model.
now that is that's pretty unique. I was going to talk about the novations next, but I got to talk about that. So, how did
Yeah.
that come about? Was that through the education and through building a community there?
It was, yeah. Like so initially, I was working with Corey Geary. That's how I learned about novations. And he was using my calls like in his mastermind and his training. And when me and him parted ways, I had people just approaching me wanting to get me in their database. And that's kind of how it started. I really had no intention. And then I had people approaching me too for like sales and coaching and team training. And then basically I just kept building on that and started doing little live Zooms and start hosting more calls. And as I was getting positive feedback and seeing it was making an impact, I just kept trying to just turn it up, make the sessions better, pare everything down, make it more refined, more concentrated, easy
Right.
to understand. And yes, it's been very interesting.
That's pretty cool, man. So the novation side of things that came from you working with Corey. Do you ever? Because here's my thing. Like, eh, I'm pretty good at acquisitions. All right, but I feel like the pitch to the seller is sometimes awkward. And I think this is a common theme with the majority of people that have been in real estate for a while is that what what value are we bringing to the seller to do innovation that they can't just do it themselves? You know, when we're saying, hey, we're going to use the MLS, they're like, yeah, I could go hire a realtor. I'm trying to sell to you. So how do you overcome that objection?
This is the toughest thing. And there's people out there teaching it as presenting it as an option when they say no to your cash offer. You'll get some limited success with that. You'll get the low hanging fruit and the lay downs with that. And, there'll be enough where you can do a significant amount of deals that way. The way I pitch it is completely different. So I do it the same way, and I build suspense and tension. And rather than me presenting it as an option, what I do is I do a slow cash offer takeaway where I tentatively say, hey, look, Mr. Seller, I got this, approved for a cash offer, but I'll be honest, based on our conversations, doesn't look like this is going to end up being a match. I did get it approved, but we'd have to be at X amount, which is my low anchor. And then before I have a short pause, long enough to get them on the edge of their seat, but not long enough for them to cuss me out and hang up on me. I say, however, I have amazing news. There's a program called the Concierge Service I was really hoping to get you qualified for. I didn't really mention it because, they're very strict on the criteria. And I was looking like the last 30 deals I submitted actually were denied. And the good news is I've got a full approval, and I'll just explain everything. Basically, from doing so many deals in your state, we have the network and the resources and the abilities to get deals done. And sometimes what happens is we'll have properties that don't fit our criteria, but they're a perfect match for someone within our reach. And what we can do if the property qualifies like this is we can give you a net offer. We're going to be working with a third-party buyer, everything that has to do with that. We'll handle any sort of repairs, inspections, anything that comes up that way. You get your net amount, we negotiate our fee from the buyer, and you get a hands-off white glove experience where we deliver the result on a silver platter. So the key is this. You have to qualify them, and then you have to sell the sizzle. You have to explain it enough that they understand the general concept, but not too much where you're introducing all these new variables for them to contemplate and have these imaginary stories running in their head.
Yeah.
And from that point, I do a short explanation. I have my paperwork ready. I shoot over the paperwork, and they hear the details when I'm running through the paperwork. So rather than us getting in this big back and forth of discussing this where they end up leaving confused, even if I answer all their questions, I have the positive assumption that this is the perfect solution. Give them the basic idea and sell the sizzle. Don't wait for them to agree. Assume they agree. I send the paperwork through, and then I run them through the whole thing, and then they learn all the details. They learn about, I don't pitch the process, I pitch the result, because the result is what they want. And the process is just going to make them confused and uncertain.
What's amazing about this is that I've had the opportunity at this point. This is episode 231. So I've interviewed 230 interviews, right? And that's not even including some of them that didn't make it on the titanium vault. But this is the first time I got to see somebody do their process live and then interview them, where it's like, I know you're not full of shit because I actually got to see you do this. So for those of you that haven't seen this, okay, you can go to my YouTube channel. It's Closers Olympics Qualifier Round 6. Rich went third, so we're about an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes into the process. You can actually watch an exactly 30-minute long conversation because it literally, as the clock was expiring, the guy's like, there's not enough room in the box on the DocuSign. Like, you can hear him. He's trying to sign in the box. So you got to hear from start to finish the entire conversation. So what I want to do is I want to unpack that call, because a lot of what you're talking about right there was in that call. And what I loved was there, I was a judge. I was there with Elijah. I was there with Max Jimenez. And there were some critiques. There were some like, hey, I wish Rich would have done this. And I don't know if you went back and you listened to me. I was like adamant against it. Like, no. He knows what he's doing right now. No, this is what he wants to be doing this. This is not an accident. This is intentional. So I want to unpack that call. First and foremost, when you got on the phone, you didn't talk a lot. You listened. And so I think this is a key, because a lot of people were saying, hey, he's letting him talk too much. But to you, you were just eating it up. You were like, you were muting yourself, and you were like, sell me, baby. Sell me the property. And that's how I feel about it. So is that something that just comes from your sales background, and like naturally you want to turn the seller into a seller where they're selling you the property? Is that what you're trying to accomplish there? And you'll just let them talk as long as they want?
Within reason, yes. right? So my sales process is broken down into three phases. Got the discovery phase, the anchor phase, and the deliver phase. So in
Gotcha.
the discovery phase, these are my objectives. My objective is, I have a strong intro. I throw in a little razzle dazzle with some, little one liners and everything. I want to set it
Fastest in
up
the West and something in the best or something like that. What were you throwing out
faster,
there?
fastest in the West and better than the rest.
There you
A
go.
lot of these are lines I used to use when I sold Kirby vacuums to get people to let me in their house. So these are old corny jokes that have been tried and true by vacuum salesmen for like 50 plus years. So I want to set it up right where they see that I'm competent, they see I'm professional, and they see I'm empathetic and I care. Right. And my first part of the process is extremely low friction. My only goal is to get them to reveal as much information as they can so I can understand what their problems are, how I can potentially solve them. And I also want to lower their defenses.
Yep.
Okay. It's a very low friction process in the first third of the call. There's almost zero pushback. I'm not trying to see if there's a sale. I'm not poking and prodding them because I understand I need all the information to be able to effectively do that. Otherwise, I'm just shooting in the dark and their guard's instantly going to go up. If I'm arguing back and forth, if it's an adversarial relationship. And this was another thing I picked up selling Kirby's. If I was argumentative or too forceful, people would kick me out of their house.
Right.
And I would have to go knock on the street to go find another deal. And I'm like, no, like getting in the house and staying in the house is the big thing. So, no, I purposely like make it very low friction and get them to reveal. And this guy was just spilling his guts on this call. Like everything he was saying was pure gold. Like for me to interrupt that would be really dumb. You know what I mean?
It was all about it's essentially every question that you had, he was giving you the answer. And so my perspective on it was like, why in the world would he talk right now? Because all he's going to do is ask the question that the guy's already given him the answer. Like this is literally what you couldn't script it any better from that scenario. So I really enjoyed just seeing you kind of consume the knowledge. And to me, this is where I gave you a 5 in rapport because people go, well, he didn't build any rapport. Yes, you did, because the seller felt like you were listening and y'all had this bond. In reality, you didn't have to do anything. You just had to stay out of the way. And because you stayed out of the way, he felt so comfortable with you because he was allowed to just talk. And he's probably talked to 5 or 6 other wholesalers that wanted to interject because their script said, I'm supposed to interject right now. I'm supposed to ask you about the AC or the roof or something like that. Now, this was a deal in Detroit. And so it was a property that the seller bought from the Detroit Land Bank. Have you ever dealt with a property through the Detroit Land Bank before? Because I said you didn't know what that was during the call. Have you done a deal with the Detroit Land Bank before?
Man, if you would have asked me before that call what the Detroit Land Bank was, I would have said it's right next to Bank of America. Like I have
So this is what's amazing.
never a day in my life. Never heard
because
of
here's the thing. So okay, for those that don't know, Detroit Land Bank is essentially where they will give you a property under the pretense that you're going to improve and repair the property. They literally give you a checklist and say, you have to do this, 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 and this. And at that point in time, you can then resell the property because they just gave it to you basically for next to nothing. And so what the guy was explaining to Rich is, well, I haven't completed all of the items yet to be able to resell the property. And so he was, again, during his just word salad to Rich, he also let Rich identify his pain point, which was, I don't have money and I can't finish what I need to finish to be able to sell the property because I bought it from the Detroit Land Bank. So you identified his pain, you built rapport by just shutting up and listening, which I believe I have a podcast, just me, where I talk about just shut up and listen. And you did a great job of that. So through that, he educated you on the Detroit Land Bank, which I loved. because that also built rapport because he now felt like he was somewhat of an authority in the conversation, which is great. So once you overcame that, once you moved into phase two, talk about that a little bit, because the finesse in which you had when you moved from like, hey, just sitting back and listening, you kind of said, okay, I got to ramp this up a little bit. We're at like the 15-minute mark. Talk about what you were trying to accomplish before you went in for the close.
So with the anchor phase, this is where I take all of our rapport and trust that we built, and then I leverage that as us together looking at the data and the third party decision makers and try to reconcile what they're looking for with reality. And I try to, rather than prove them wrong, bring them onto my side, and I introduce, fear and, low comps and uncertainty and all these things to help move the needle where I can get them to sell themselves. And I try to get them to argue up from my low anchor rather than me try to argue down.
Yep.
And real quick, just to touch on.
In that call, he was starting at 18,000, right? That was his price. When you anchored, I believe you threw out very loosely 9 to 13,000, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what I noticed was when you threw out your anchor, he was immediately at 15. It went from 18 to 15 like that. And there wasn't a whole lot of pushback because, like you said, it wasn't necessarily you were saying 9 to 13. You were talking about, the third party over here is saying that it needs to be 9 to 13. I really enjoyed that part of the call because you never made an offer. You just were putting a range out there. And I felt like this is where the call, to me, I was jumping out of my seat. I was so excited. I really was, because I always want it to be where the seller and I both feel like it was a victory. It was a win-win situation. I don't want one party feeling like they were taken advantage of. And I felt like coming out of that call, everyone involved felt that way. So when you're talking about, when you're in that anchor phase, are you ever bringing up the novation aspect or even going into the concierge? Is that where you introduce the concierge, or is that come in phase three?
I saved that card. That's my biggest card to lay down. So I never give them an offer before I send it in writing. It's always tentative offers of what I think they may do. So that leaves the tension there. I try to make it where them even getting an offer is a win, right? I put the bait out there to keep that tension, and I don't have trouble with sellers ghosting me ever. You know what I mean? They may say no to my offer, but they always want to hear what my offer is. And it's good because they can't nail me down to anything. And I play the small role where I'm blameless, right? And I'm their advocate. I've never contradicted them. I'm kind of concerned on their behalf about what's going on in reality, where if we can't reconcile this, we may not be able to solve the problem. So I'm doing something for them, not something to them. And
And in this call in particular, when you threw out 9 to 13, the objection that the seller had was the work that needed to be done to sell through the land bank. And to me, this is where everyone flipped out. Like, I don't, have you watched the replay?
I did see the replay. Yeah.
Yeah. So everyone in the chat, the judges, everyone was freaking out because you didn't just go for the kill and send the contract for $10,000 cash. Because I think at that point in time, you understood in reality, the only way to really close this was a novation, because you needed to be able to do the work that he could not afford to do so he could sell it. And I don't think anybody else caught on to that, where I was like, no, dumbasses, the past literally 20 minutes, the seller's been telling us, I can't sell you the property until I do the furnace and we tie up some stuff in the kitchen. And I'm like, holy shit, the Novation King literally got the lay down Novation deal right now. This is unbelievable. And you had to go in. That's when you introduce the concierge service. We're going to be able to get this closed for you. We can come in and take care of those items, the furnace and the whatnot, and then we'll be able to get this closed. But what was amazing to me was you never made an offer. You never threw out a number. Again, what you said was something along the lines of, hey, great news. What? Talk about that, because it was like, it was this big deal where it's like, hey, great news. I'm sending you something.
So I curtailed my process, right? Because I made the mistake on my first tryouts, just running how I'd run a normal call, right? Because when I have a seller where I know there's something there, I'm going to dig deep into that call, and I'm going to be patient, and I'm going to take the amount of time that it needs, right? But with this, obviously, we're under the gun, so I want, normally I'll call them back with the offer, but I basically told them, hey, look, I'm messaging on my company chat right now. Oh, holy smokes! Wow, I just got this back. I needed to create that pivot and that momentum and that excitement to get them to make a decision on the spot, right? So I do the same thing with my normal pitch, but it's just slightly different. It's a little bit stretched out. But I need, like, the way that I do it is I don't pitch it as an option. I pitch it as a congratulations, you qualified. I run them through the paperwork and explain the details. And then I just assume they're fine with the price, assume that they're going to sign, and I just direct them to sign like it's no big deal. And I kind of go through this wave of energy of explaining the things in detail and then smoothing it over, calming it down, wrapping a nice bow around it, and moving on to the next thing. So it feels real and they understand the paperwork as well. Because I can get people to just sign without reading it. But the problem is, then they're going to do all this stuff that I don't want them to do. And when I try to hold them to the contract, they're going to feel like I got over on them and I tricked them. Yeah. So it's important that they do understand, because we need more cooperation when we're dealing with a third-party sale. And it's not like a vacant, abandoned house. Like, if there's extra, a lot of the properties I deal with, $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 for the novations, because that's where the margin is, right? And obviously that type of seller is going to be much different than a desperate seller with a crappy house. Like, you know what I mean? You can't use that same type of techniques. Those people see through that. Like, right. You know what I mean? When you just try to slam it down their throat, you can do that with certain types of deals, but with other types of deals, it's not as effective.
So what's unique about this is that you and I have very similar tactics on the phone with very similar results at the end. The difference between you and I is that I always ask for a number. It's my second question. It's literally like, hey, Rich, are you still looking to sell 123 Main Street? And you're like, yep. All right. How much you looking to get for that property? I mean, and it's hilarious because people are like, that's so anti what everybody teaches, right? Everyone's like, you don't do that. And it's hilarious because I get numbers right out of them, right out of the gate. It's like 100,000. And it's like, okay. And then that's where you and I now enter the exact same phase where I just shut up. I say, hey, what do you got going on with the property? Tell me a little bit about the property. They talk. That to me is where I identify all of the pain points. I understand their motivation. I understand what they want to talk about, right? Do they want to talk about the tenants? Do they want to talk about the fact that the condition? Do they want to talk about the fact that they're behind on their mortgage? What is important to them in this deal? And then after we go through all of that, the next phase for me is I ask them again, so how much do you really want for this property if I can take care of this? And that's normally my offer. If it's going to be a deal, it was 100,000, and I say, well, no realtor commissions, and I take care of everything. What can you do for me? $75,000. And then 2 minutes later, the contract is in their email for $75,000. And they're like, just like that? Yeah, just like that. Because I know they can't push back on it at that point, because it's like, you just told me the number, 75,000. So it's a little bit different than you, but it's kind of the same process down the road where in an ideal scenario, you don't say a number and I don't say a number. It's never about what we did. It's always about somebody else. And so for you, it's a third party. For me, it's them. You see? So I
like
love that's why I flipped out because I was like, dude, this is a closer right here. He didn't even make the offer. Because what'd you end up getting it signed for? 11?
11, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
he agreed verbally to 12. I sent it at 11. He didn't even blink an eye. I talked to him since then, and I've actually already had someone go out to the property today. He's willing to go down to 9 now.
Yeah.
So, like, he's essentially negotiating against himself. So,
Yeah. And it's, there was not a lot of value on that. I'm glad you went back and watched it because to be honest with you, bro, without me being there, I don't know if they give you the credit for that deal because originally they gave you a much lower MAO and a much lower ARV. We do a shit ton of deals in Detroit. So I was like, yo, hey, no, that's not the ARV. This is the ARV. And so they actually put up RJ's ARV, RJ's MAO. And then people started calling me and you brothers or
I
third
saw that.
cousins or something like that. And I was like, no, I'm telling you what the deal is. Like, hey, don't screw this guy because y'all don't do Detroit deals. But I was excited to see that. So now let's talk about outside of Closers Olympics on a day-to-day basis. You're talking about $300,000 to $500,000 price points. That's more where you're doing deals. How different you said you talked about it a little bit, but how different do you have to navigate that conversation when you're going through your phases? And what kind of spreads are you looking for? Like, what's an ideal, like, normal deal on a $400,000 house for you look like?
Once you get above like the $300,000 mark, if you can hit a 10% or greater margin on it after realtor fees and closing costs and all that, it's normally a pretty decent deal. That's like a solid base hit, right? On the lower price point houses, I say you don't want to go into deal unless you're expecting to make at least 30,000 after everybody gets paid, because that also factors in for margin of error. If there's things wrong with the house that you're not aware of, fat deals can get skinny, and what did they say? Skinny deals disappear. So you
Right.
want to build in some extra meat. And I also have a process too where when I'm interviewing realtors, one of the things I do is I give them the task of telling me what they think the property will need to be listed at to get an offer in 30 days. So I'll crowdsource that with all the realtors that have listed in the area. I interview them and have them sell themselves to me, just like I would the seller. And then I pick the most competent one that has the vendors, the connections, and I feel like can get the deal done and knows what they're doing. So yeah,
You know,
you want to make at least 30 grand on these.
Yeah, and that's pretty consistent what I've heard with people that do quite a bit of novations. That's kind of like the magic number. Um, Depending upon price point, right? I mean, if you're getting up in that $500,000-$600,000 price point, first of all, don't do that unless you're experienced or you got someone that you're working with that has that experience. But also, just at that point, you've got to pad the juice there a little bit. The thing that I really love about talking to you, even when you're talking to realtors, it's really about you staying out of the way and listening. That seems to be like out of everything that I've gotten to know from you through this interview and watching you at the Closers Olympics qualifiers is that you're just really good at kind of stepping back and letting people tell you what's going to happen and then making a decision based off of that. Do you think that is a skill set that has really helped you along the way?
I think it's very crucial. Like, I learned this a while back where one of my bosses told me, like, whoever is trying to do the convincing, the person that makes the decision is the person in control. And whoever's trying to sell the other person is in a weaker position. So you're always in the best position by listening and hearing what your counterpart cares about, what they're trying to sell you, right? And reading between the lines. And then you can use that information and spin it back in your direction on how you're trying to go. But yeah, absolutely. I think
Okay.
that's crucial.
So on that note, talk to the people about the scenarios when you get on the phone with a seller that doesn't want to talk, because those are the ones, like for me, I kind of have an awkward standoff. Like, you're not going to talk, I'm not going to talk. We're going to see what happens here. Talk about when you get on the phone with someone and they say, yeah, I mean, you want to buy my house? What are you going to offer me? How do you kind of make them loosen up and eventually talk to you?
So this is one reason why I like playing the low man on the totem pole. And from the very beginning of the call, I let them know, look, I'm just basically a glorified information gatherer. My job's real easy. I'm just going to go over a list of questions. I try to make myself as non-threatening as possible, because a lot of these people too, right? They're employees. They understand what it's like to work for a company, to have rules you have to follow, to have a boss that you need to answer to. So it was very difficult for them to get angry at me for being pleasant, polite, kind, and doing my job, right? So I really try to downplay that. And my whole front end is so non confrontational that I make it very difficult. If they're being mean to me, they can't do it for very long because it's not gratifying, because I don't feed into it at all. Like, they can literally do whatever to me. I used to do this in Kirby too. The husbands would give me shit, and I would just be so nice, not let it even affect me, nothing. And after a while, even the wife would get on my side and it would go in my favor. And I could put that in my back pocket later. Like, one of my closes would be, I'd look at the wife and I'd say, hey, you wouldn't be mad if you bought it, would you? And she'd be like, no, of course not. And then the husband's like, damn it, God damn it, Rich. Like, so it's, yeah, like, people that won't talk to me, it's an uncommon thing, but I don't do cold call leads and everything. Like, my leads are JV, and before that they were PPC. So they were already pre-selected as open to selling their house. So
I totally get that. I still get it on a lot of my PPC leads, though. I mean, I could think of today. I mean, I was on the phone for 8 hours with sellers today. At least two or three of them were like, I don't know, your ad said you'd give me an offer. What's your offer? You know, and I just, you get, sell me on it. Tell me about your house, you know, and eventually next thing you know, it like they loosen up and then we're having a normal conversation, right?
yeah.
Now let's talk about this Closers Olympics that's coming up here. You've qualified, you're a part of it. I love your mindset on it. You're like, if the lead gods are, you know, in my favor, everything's gonna go good. You're so relaxed about it. But there's something that tells me deep down inside, you really wanted this. You wanted to qualify. You wanted to be a part of the competition. Um, is there anything that you're going to change about what you've learned through your qualifying runs coming up? Because you've got to make it on Friday, right? So you've got to be one of the six, or three out of the six will move on to Saturday. So you've got to do that. Then you would have 30 minutes on Saturday. And then if you make it to Sunday, an hour. So you've essentially got to win 3 days in a row. Talk about that. What's your mindset going into that? Are you going to change anything that you do on a daily basis?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm going to look for the low hanging fruit, right? I'm going to look for people that are looking to sell ASAP. I'm going to look for areas where maybe they don't have as much of an emotional attachment to the property. It's going to be a lot harder for me to get someone to sell a $500,000 house that their family and kids are living in 30 minutes than a crap box in, the middle of wherever, right? But I'm just going to shorten my process. And I went and looked back and analyzed it. And, like, in terms of the game, I definitely found some cringe moments where I could have curtailed that. It was unnecessary. I could have just closed it. It goes against what I do, like, every single day. You know what I mean? Like, with the patience and everything. But I love it, man. It's cool because it gives us a chance to show out. It opens up for a new audience to kind of see, like, what I'm doing, and hopefully it'll end up helping some people, or they'll look at me and say, hey, look, if some vacuum salesman with Pippi Longstocking braids and neck tattoos can pull this off, maybe I can too. You know what I mean? And I just love it, man. And I don't take it personally because, look, I know everybody that's on there has closed lots of deals. We're all making fantastic money. Win, lose, or draw, we have nothing to be mad about. Like, we're in like a closing competition on the internet. Like, that's the coolest shit ever. Like, who would have thought that? I wish they had that for Kirby. Like, I would have been doing my Kirby demo on the thing.
I love it. It's funny you bring up the cringe moments where you could have just closed it. I think I made a comment later when Carlos was going. I was like, yeah, that was like my ideal lead. I think I probably would have closed that like 7 minutes into the conversation and then probably closed Carlos's deal right after it. Because for me, it is normal. Like, I think my average close time is about 8 minutes. But again, this is cash, not Novation, not seller finance, not sub 2. Because I would have just looked at that and said, hey, we can take care of the land bank situation. We know how to handle that. And we'll just get this deal done for you in the next 45 days. Sign right here for 10 grand and we're going to get this done. Thanks. See you later, man. And moved on to the next one. That's how I would have handled that. But I enjoyed watching your process, probably because it's more realistic, right? I think that's more realistic for what people are going to try to mirror. And it was more educational because you did go the appropriate route with the Novation. It was the solution. And I loved it because no one knows this, but we had a secret Zoom meeting the night before. And I literally said, yeah, don't try to close a fucking Novation because that's some dumb shit. You're not going to get a Novation signed live in 30 minutes. And Rich is like, yeah, let me show you. Okay, I'm the Novation king. So I love that. Now, I've asked everybody, so I don't know if you know all the contestants or not, but who do you have making it to Sunday? There's going to be 3 of us. I know you're taking yourself, right? Right? Who else you got going to the finals?
Man, honestly, there's a lot of great closers. I have to say it. I think it's going to come between me, you, and Ricky.
Really? You taking
Morgan? Ricky Morgan's a G, man. He's a beast. He's closed a lot of deals.
So what's crazy about you saying that is Kendall brought up Ricky as well. He does so many deals live, so he's used to the live factor. He had the experience of the Closers Olympics last year, right? What's funny is before I saw you, I was saying Scotty and Kendall. And then Kendall said Scotty and Ricky. And what's a common theme here is everyone I'm talking to is picking someone that had to qualify to be in the Closers Olympics. No one's really picking the people that just got the golden fucking ticket, except for me, which my golden ticket's the fucking belt that I won. Okay. So, I mean, now I find that a little bit interesting because I do think there's something to be said about the fact that you guys, have already been live, right? You had to earn the right to be there. Do you think that kind of gives you a little bit of an advantage, the fact that you've already done this twice going into Friday?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, I forgot Scotty was in there. Scotty's a beast. And I actually worked with his team on Novations as well. So,
dude, Scotty's legit.
Yeah, he's a G. Like, yeah. It's so hard, right? Because do they pick up the phone? Did you catch it? There's so many variables in there. I think if we all can get on the phone and get quality leads, like at the right time, then man, it's really a toss up on that. It's hard to say, right?
I know. But I think about the scenario of like Ilya's lead that he had before you, which was a really difficult situation in New Jersey. They kind of wanted close to retail, but there was a potential sub 2 seller finance hybrid that Ilya was trying to pitch. If you had gotten that lead, do you think you could have closed it?
Yeah.
You do? I'll be honest with you. I didn't think Ilya did bad. I just think that the lacking of the Novation aspect of it and trying to go this, it's funny. If you're going to go the creative route, you better select the right one. and he picked sub-2 seller finance hybrid instead of going the Novation route, which he could have done. And he could have really like nailed that one down. But to your point, it does depend on what lead picks up, how willing they are, what's going on in their life. I talked to an elderly person today, gave them their number. And they were like, all right, well, let me think about it for a couple of sleeps and I'll call you back. And I literally hung up and I said, that's my worst nightmare for the Closers Olympics, because there is nothing I could have done on that call that got that man to sign that. He was born in the 1940s and he got taught in 1950 that you don't sign a contract without sleeping on it. And there ain't nothing that's going to happen. So that's part of the competition. I'm excited about it. Now, so we got the press conference coming up here in about 9 days from now. Are you going to talk any trash, or are you just going to keep it low key and just be the cool guy?
I'll just say this, I never throw the first punch, right? But if someone wants to smoke, we can go there. We can take it there. It's not an issue.
All right. Hey, I'm just letting you know during the press conference when I give you the smoke, okay? It's all in love and respect, all right?
Yo, well, RJ, man, you're the champ, so I'm gonna let you talk your shit because you earned that right. You're probably the only person I'm gonna give that free pass to.
Well,
man.
There you go. I appreciate that.
You, man. Look, hey, you're the champ, man. You can't argue with
appreciate that.
So.
All right, for the people that have gotten to know you today and they want to learn more about you, where can they go to find your program, and where's the best place to consume more of your content?
Yeah, connecting with my Instagram at Novation King. I do live calls almost every day. I post tons of clips of calls and content in Novation. Like my whole platform is pretty value based. I throw in a little bit of lifestyle stuff in there from time to time. But you can go to novationking.com and get involved with the Rainmaker Acquisitions Novation Training. We've got a private community. We do role plays on there. We have expert guest speakers. We'd love to get you in there one of these days as well. And, lots of high-level wholesalers doing tons of deals, networking, uplifting each other, sharing resources. So Instagram is my main platform, and I'm barely starting to tap into YouTube. I'm not getting any love there yet, but I'm going to keep on pushing. But Instagram's been my main platform, and that's what kind of set me apart was I was doing live calls. I wasn't doing the normal guru shit of me in front of a car and me popping a bottle and yada, 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 help me do your business. I just showed people what I could do because that was the thing that the game I felt was missing for a big part. There's certain people doing that, but there's a big void in that, like the authenticity. So
facts, man. Well, I think that's why I resonated with you so much, because you go look at my Instagram. All it is me talking to sellers. That's all it is, baby.
You're the OG.
That's what we do. I mean, that's what I say. Hey, this is what we do. If it's not what you do, then let me see your team that's actually doing deals. You're just the guy that's, riding on the ship. Love and respect a lot of guys that are able to do that. But at the end of the day, I love what we do, man. I love talking to sellers. I love being able to solve the problems, and I'm passionate about it. Like, I got into this business because I enjoyed that part of it. And of course, money's not too terrible either.
Nice bonus.
Yeah, right. Last question I have for you is, because I'm just curious. I don't know a lot about you. I mean, you seem like super optimistic, like fun-loving guy. Obviously, like you said, you got the braids going on, you got the neck tattoos and stuff. Outside of the real estate world, like, what is your life like, man? I mean, who are you? You seem like a super chill guy that just loves to enjoy life. Is that kind of who Rich Wonders is?
Man, that's my life mission, is to live an interesting, adventuresome, exciting life, make a positive impact, and help people escape the matrix, for lack of a better term, get financial freedom, do as they want, live life on their own terms. So not wasted, but I sacrificed a good chunk of my life to gain the skills that I have, right? And I want to make sure it's not all in vain, where I'm harboring this information, I'm just using it for myself, or even worse, not using it at all.
Right.
And, I want to help people out, and I want to make a positive impact and have people say one day, hey man, Rich really helped me out. He gave me some info that changed my life, but yeah, man, I love to travel. I got a hot wife I love kicking it with. She's cool as hell. I got 4 kids. I went from being homeless essentially, years ago, to being in a penthouse and doing all the shit that I always wanted to do, where I was like, man, one day when I make it, I'm going to do this, this, and this, and this. And now I get to do all that shit. So I wake up every day so happy, so grateful. Like, I've dodged death. I've dodged all sorts of terrible things. And now life is good. So I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to be grateful. I'm going to spread the good vibes. So
I love it, man. Well, I said that was the last question, but this is a short one. It's just yes or no. Are you a metalhead?
Bro, a lot of people wonder that. I'm not a metalhead, dude.
Oh, okay. We're not brothers.
I'm sorry, bro. My boy Justin Stamper thought I was a metalhead too. You might know him.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. So I did play in a band, right? I am a guitarist. I was more like the Sublime, Red Hot Chili Peppers, alternative 90s type of deal. I was born in 84. And then I got into more rap and hip hop and all that. But I enjoy all types of music. I used to work in a recording studio. I still got some music shit here I fuck around with, if I'm feeling squirrely. But
I was gonna say,
man, no, I
you're
fuck with
either
metal.
a metalhead or you're like a Sublime 311, that kind of guy, So that makes more sense. So
yeah, man. Yep.
All right. Well, Rich, I appreciate you jumping on the podcast. Excited to compete against you in the Closers Olympics. Best of luck. I hope to see you in the finals. So then I can show you how to really close using our style.
Yeah. School me, big dog. I'm here to learn, man. I'm a student of the game. Let's go, dude.
What we'll do is you'll close 1 deal in your hour, and I'll close 4 deals in the hour, and it'll just be a volume thing. That's all it is.
Gosh, okay.
We'll
see what happens. Yeah.
Love it. All right, guys. For those of you that don't know, Closers Olympic is coming up. What are the dates here? July 28th, 29th, 30th. Okay, you got to join us for that. $297. You get all of 2020, all of 2021, where you get to see me win that belt, and you get all of 2023. It's going to be great. For 97. Actually, I think they're running 50% off tickets, so it's like $50 now. You can come see it. Hop on over to closersolympics.com, and if you want me to get enough money so I can buy myself another coffee, add /RJ, and I get something for it. Apparently, supposedly, I don't know if I ever will or not, but do that, and we'll see if they send me $3. Love to see you there. Also, if you enjoyed what you heard today, leave us a 5-star review. If you didn't like what you heard, go over to Steve Trang's podcast and leave him a 1-star review. Fuck that guy. All right. So appreciate y'all. Love you, Steve. I'm just kidding. See you guys next week. Thanks, Rich.
All right. Thanks, man.